Well, it's noon, it's Thursday, so this is Coffee with Ralph. And I'm the founder of Fireproof Financial Group, and I had something set up for today, and something happened last night that just changed my whole approach for today. Sometimes things just smack you aside the head, and you got to remember what's important in life. Let me explain. Oh, by the way, coffeewithralph.com is a free 15-minute call with me. I've been asked by an estate attorney to put together a presentation, a workshop, if you will, to work through the personal care questions and preferences. Because, in the estate plan, the advanced care directive that they have in there is great if you're incapacitated. And if your family knows about it. That was one of them that just kind of smacked me side the head. A lot of people set up trust and don't share that information with their children. But that beside the point, we were talking, I said, incapacitation's a pretty broad statement. But let's take, the guy that goes to the doctor and doctor says, hey, you've got adult memory loss. Nice polite term for saying you've got early stages of Alzheimer's. And so your life changes. You start forgetting simple things and then it progresses from there. But, the plan of care that we were talking about, I'm sitting there looking at this going, I'm missing something. And then last night I was sitting there at home thinking about what I was going to do today and write down my notes, and up jumped Mabel. Mabel's a Siamese cat that just showed up on her doorstep. Well, the whole story behind Mabel is she's an adult cat. She's probably 7 or 8 years old. And I watched a car pull up into our private road by our mailboxes, and I thought it was a mailman. And this is about a year ago, and dumped something out the door and then drive off. Well, a couple of days later, I find this terrified cat in my garage, just absolutely beside herself. But you could tell that she'd been well kept for a long time and then neglected or forgotten. And my mind went, what in the world would bring people to this? We see the cruelty all the time, but this cat wasn't abused. This cat was well taken care of for most of her life. She was quite skinny when we found her. And that couldn't have happened just in a couple of days. So my mind went, okay, what could have this possibly happened? And then I remembered being with a client as his cats who kept him company in his senior years climbed all over him, and purred and took care of him, and he took care of them. And it never dawned on me that they weren't provided for if the family needed to take care of dad or mom. So here's this cat. She jumps up on my lap, makes herself at home. It's taken her a year to get comfortable with the fact that we're not going to dump her down the road somewhere. But now she's decided I'm her person, which tells me that her prior owner was a man. And she craves the attention. She craves that. But here's what I wanted to talk to about today. And it's kind of one of those conversations that started there. As I'm looking through my own plan of care, it dawned on me that my cats and my dogs and my gun collection aren't talked about there. They aren't provided for. Now, the dogs and cats, they're physical things, but my collection, that's a different story. That's not a person or an animal, that's a thing, but has value. Not just sentimental value, but value. And I know from experience, because I bought different things off of, estate sales and things of that nature, that a forced sale of something of value doesn't always bring what it should bring. So here's my conversation, and it might not be a 15-minute thing today, but let's talk about this. We have animals that depend on us. We've taken them as part of our life, and hey, as far as I'm concerned, they're part of the family. So all of a sudden I need care. Who's taking care of my cats and dogs? Not just when I need care, but what happens if I pass? Who's taking my cats and dogs? Are they going to take them to the shelter? Are they going to dump them along the road? I don't think ill of my family. Don't get me wrong there. And I'm sure the gentleman that owned the Siamese cat didn't think that their children would do that either. I'm half imagining that he talked to him and said, no, Dad, we'll take care of her. She'll be fine. We'll take care of her. And then they dumped her. It's not the first cat that's been dumped along our road, but it's the first one I noticed really did come from people. There's a lot of them we get cats or kittens, so they dump off mom and the kittens along our road. We've done that with puppies. Oh goodness, it's sad. And I think a lot of that's our economy, and people can't afford to keep their pets or don't have the time. But to dump them is not the thing to do. And if I don't provide for that in this document that I'm setting up for this attorney, I don't think I've done my job. Because our animals are as important to us as my gun collection, my coin collections, my assets, my stocks, my bonds. They're as important to us as anything. They as our children grow and move on with their lives, become what keeps us centered, keeps us grounded. Some people have fish, birds. A parrot can live 40, 50 years, I hear. So an older person gets a parrot. What do you do with that parrot? I think, no, I know that has to be part of this thing that we're talking about. Because that life of that animal was important to the owner to make sure he's properly cared for. He took him to the vet. He's done whatever he's got to do for him to keep him healthy and keep him safe. So it's important. Why don't we talk about that? Why isn't that part of this plan? I just think we overlook things sometimes. We overlook what's important. I mean, I can imagine this man that had that Siamese cat looking at his kids, because let's say they moved him to a facility, right? And he couldn't have his cat, memory care. And all of a sudden he comes to a moment of clarity, which Alzheimer's, dementia patients have them. And he says, hey, how about Mabel? How's she doing? Can you bring me a picture of her? I sure like to have one. And the kids are going, what do I say? I'll tell them that I dumped her along a dirt road in the country. Well, so they're going to lie, right? They're going to lie to cover the mistake that they made here. That would be, to us animal owners, that would be as bad as just saying, well, what's going on with our children? Well, here's what's going on with our children. We gave them away. We just left, we opened the door and said, go away. We don't want you anymore. I know that sounds absurd, but when it comes to our pets, especially as we get older, it's important we provide for them too. And the collections and the possessions and even the paintings. I mean, I've been in homes where they've had original artwork, and that has to be provided for. That's not going to be a forced sale. Let's get rid of it. Let's dispose of it. Let's sell it when we can get the best possible price for it. I'm now looking at maybe selling off some of my collection simply because I know what it's worth. I don't think my daughter does. Matter of fact, I'm pretty sure she doesn't. Because really she doesn't know much about it, right? So there's my thoughts for the day. I know I'm probably a little short on time for the 15 minutes, but hey, guys, it's not a 15-minute conversation, but it takes a whole lot more thought on my part putting this workshop together for this attorney. How do I introduce that? That's as difficult as introducing this whole conversation with a family unit. You see, this workshop that we're putting on isn't for the trust owners. It's for the trust owners and their family. Because one of the things that happen is they don't know what's out there. They don't know what the parents have. They don't know what the parents want until, as one of them said, I don't want them to know until they have to know. Well, for most trusts, that's when you die, because that's what it's meant to do. It's take care of you when you pass. It's to take care of your estate so it doesn't get just dumped on somebody. But even then, our animals aren't talked about in the trust. Our kids are, our possessions are, but our animals aren't. And our collections, like coin collections and such, may not be in the trust the way you think it's in. I'm going to end it with this today. You know, I believe in stories, and I've shared this one about Mabel. But I've been in a number of estate sales where classic firearms, antique firearms are sitting there on a table. Make me an offer, you know, type of thing. It might be worth several $1,000s, but the guy will take $50 for it. That's not why I bought them. That's not why I collect them. So what about cars? Hey, there's another one. What about my classic car? What about my hot rod? What about all that stuff? It's got to be talked about. It's got to be addressed. And in this workshop, we have to talk about that. The families need to sit down and understand what mom and dad want. Not wait until they have to do it or it's necessary, but do it when we can. So listen, this has been Ralph Gale and Coffee with Ralph, my normal Thursday afternoon. I actually am thinking about rebroadcasting this later in the evening. So some of the people that are working who can't take the 15 minutes off to watch this can jump on board. CoffeeWithRalph.com is a free 15-minute call with me. Let's talk about our animals. Let's talk about our care. Let's talk about what we want. When we can't speak for ourselves, we have to have something that will speak for us. It's time, guys. It's been Coffee with Ralph. I want you to have a blessed week, and I'll see you next Thursday at noon.